if you don't care about them on a deep level where it gets into the psychology of how they think about their family, how they think about their personal life and whatnot, they can smell that a mile away. You're really listening to the words that they use, and you're trying to weave those, not just like things they say, but the stories that they tell you into how you're going to set up like all your campaigns is based on those things.
Yeah.
What we're trying to accomplish is what are none of our competition thinking about? What is no one else doing out there? What's the shock factor we can come out with that gets people to go, whoa, what's that? I want to look at that. I want to lean in.
Hey, welcome to the Message Market Fit podcast. I'm your host, Chris Silvestri, and if you're new here, this is a show where I chat with B2B SaaS folks in marketing, product, growth, and founders about how they join the conversation already happening in their customers' minds. We dive deep into their thinking, their systems, and their playbooks to see how they empathize with their audience and speak to them in a way that resonates, so they're compelled to take action. Join us and learn how you too can shape your messaging strategy and write copy that truly resonates and differentiates you. I'm super excited about my guest today, Matt Aiello. Matt is the VP of Marketing at ServiceCore, a SaaS company providing software solutions for the portable sanitation and dumpster rental industries. In this episode, we chat about Matt's unique approach to understanding customers in blue-collar industries, his non-linear thinking when it comes to marketing campaigns, and how he uses AI tools like ChatGPT to generate content efficiently at scale. We also discuss the importance of cross-functional alignment and meeting customers where they are in the technology adoption curve. I'm super excited about this, especially because I've worked with Matt and ServiceCore. So in this episode, we are diving into some of the nuances of our project together. Let's dive right in. Hey, Matt, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm doing good, Chris. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Glad to have you. So for listeners, just to give them some context, you and I work together on the website copy for ServiceCore, which is the company that you are a VP of marketing for right now. I'm curious about this because you mentioned online that you are pretty good or you like the challenge of working with smaller companies and helping them become bigger ones. So what do you mean by that? Why do you like that challenge?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll give a little background too. So I've been doing marketing because I'm old, it's been like 23 years. And in the last 6 years, I've really found a nice home in the SaaS space, focused on niche verticals and specifically focused on blue collar verticals, which is really interesting because I think that those are highly underserved. And so why do I like the smaller companies versus the larger ones? I think there's pros and cons to each. Everyone has their preferences, but for me personally, there's something that is almost like a drug that when you can take a smaller company and watch that explosive growth and get to a place where it seems like that's the fun ride of the culture, the company, the people you're working with, all that good stuff. And when you get really big, what comes with that is success, but it's also a lot of red tape, regulations, lots and lots of approval processes, and it becomes less free-flowing and fun. For me personally, that's my take on it. So I really like that sweet spot of startup to a point of sale, or maybe 2 points of sale in a company. But my previous employer, we went public and it was a really fun ride to go public, but we grew so quickly that once we got to that enormous state, my heart was telling me that I was better suited for that ride up versus being there and staying on afterwards.
All right, awesome. Yeah, I want to actually dive a bit deeper into your background because I can say between all my clients, you're probably one of the most curious one and super interested in understanding customers. So I want to know, a bit more about your journey. What brought you to this stage?
Sure. Right out of college, I worked for an advertising agency. And at the time, because it's all I knew, I thought, I want to start my own advertising agency. This is the most fun thing I've ever done. And when you're young and you can work like all night long and you have no responsibilities at home, it is a lot of fun because, oh my gosh, they're going to buy us beer and pizza. This is amazing. But in all seriousness, the like we had so many diverse customers or clients. So we were working with uh, car dealerships to car manufacturers to retirement homes, like retirement communities that were super expensive to get into. And what I realized is that you needed to be, as a marketer, you needed to be a bit of a chameleon where you can learn someone's personas, their product, what they're selling, what they're offering, and get into the heads of that buyer. So that way you could market to it. And I realized that I was watching some of my colleagues at the time where it seemed like they'd been in it for a long time, a bit burnt. And they had so many clients over the years that it just seemed like cookie cut. Okay, I'll do this playbook, I'll run this, go. And they weren't really diving in deep. And so I didn't have it figured out at that young age, but as I started going through my career, I worked in different spaces. I did a stint in the medical aesthetics space, spent actually a good amount of time there. Totally different persona, working with plastic surgeons and with doctors and with skincare spas, like high-end spas and things like that. What that persona cares about and how they think is very different than the world of now of blue collar folks that are this company, ServiceCore. The personas are business owners that are not highly educated. They are salt of the earth, blue collar folks that have a lot of distrust for software. But once you get under the hood of how they think and who they are, that's where the magic, in my opinion, starts to happen with marketing. And I think that's why when we work together, we align so well, because this is everything that you do is all based on getting to know them well.
Yeah.
So over the years, I just really got honed in on, hey, if you can think like they think and put yourself in that position, you're going to be able to market to them in a much better way. But I would take it one step further than that. If you don't care about them on a deep level where it gets into the psychology of how they think about their family, how they think about their personal life and whatnot, they can smell that a mile away. And I would say for any marketer, if you're not fully committed to that, you may not like where you work and you may not be fully committed. But if you like where you work, it's easier to be fully committed and to almost be like, I'm going to be these people's friends, and it's authentic. I think that's when the best marketing can come out of that, because you understand them so well.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think you need to be necessarily passionate about the industry or like the specific niche, but you need to be passionate about understanding them and understanding what resonates with them.
Yeah, I'm not passionate about pumping human waste out of toilets. I can promise you that.
All right. Yeah. So talking about toilets, can you tell us a bit more what ServiceCore does and what and who the audience is?
Sure. So ServiceCore provides a SaaS solution where it's an ERP. It's a solution that helps portable restroom operators run their business. So every aspect from their routes to billing to managing customers, managing inventory, all that good stuff. And they serve a highly underserved industry of portable sanitation. Most people look at this industry and they go, ew, it's like you're pumping poop out of the ground. That's pretty disgusting. And unfortunately, a lot of people in the business community actually look down on these folks because they are not highly educated. When I say that, they don't have a formal education of college. And in most cases, they have a high school education. In most cases, they've inherited the business from their families. But these folks are some of the smartest and best human beings I've ever worked with. And they run multi-million-dollar businesses. They're certainly not dumb. That is, so if people write them off as these people don't know what they're doing, they're
mom
dead
and
wrong.
pop shop. Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. What we do is we try to help them with this is an industry that has not adopted software in ways that other industries have. And what we're trying to do is help these folks get out of the manual processes that they're in today and leverage software, which they distrust, by the way, but leverage it to help them run their business in a more efficient way.
I loved when we started talking that you spotted the opportunity. Can you tell us what were the signals that told you, okay, there's a chance to stand out here?
Sure. So going back a little bit, I was working when I started in the SaaS world for home services. I worked with a lot of HVAC, plumbing, electrical folks, roofers, siding contractors, things like that. And there's a company called ServiceTitan that most people know about in this industry. They're a huge company out of Southern California. And what they did, which I really admired at the time, was they took a long time to start to try to change the minds of the industry. And that didn't happen overnight. The HVAC and plumbing industry in particular, those folks were in a similar spot as the portable sanitation industry is today, where they inherited the business from their families. They were, this is the way we've always done things, that kind of mentality. But what ServiceTitan started to do is run a playbook of, we're going to get to understand them and we're going to educate only. We're not going to sell. We're going to educate folks that teaches them a way to think about their business in a different way. And you don't do that overnight. You do that with baby steps and you get people to come along with you on this ride. And overall, they benefit from it too, because they are learning how to be better business people. But that was when I looked at the portable sanitation industry and I was recruited to come to ServiceCore. That was the first thing I looked at was there's no other competitors in this space that are educating and trying to help the industry change. It was the same old. And that was the key marker for me to say, this is an amazing opportunity. And a lot of people don't use software today, but if we start to educate and put out a ton of content that's based on what we've learned about them, then I think that we have a real shot to grow fast. And so far we've become the de facto software solution in the industry. And the most common thing we hear from customers and competitors these days is, I see you guys everywhere. And it's starting to work.
Nice. Yeah. Totally. I'm also interested in when we got in touch. I remember that ServiceCore just got a round of funding, right? And you found yourself basically, I don't remember if you were a solo VP of marketing or you had a small team. So what were the challenges for you as a small marketing team?
Sure. So when I joined the company, they had just got their funding. And because of that funding, I was hired because it was a startup business with two founders that were amazing people, really smart guys that started this, and they saw an underserved industry and they saw that there was crappy software out there. And so they started working on software that would improve these people's lives. And so when I came on, it was not new to me because my previous role, we would buy companies, stick them under umbrellas, and sometimes they had no marketing team. Sometimes it was a big marketing team, sometimes it was none, and everything in between. So I was very used to coming into something that did not have a foundation, marketing foundation that is, or of course, sometimes overall strategy, and trying to set the groundwork first so that we could build upon it. But when I came in, and this was shortly before we started talking, the first thing that I did was I inherited a marketing team that was junior people that were very small and some weren't even marketers. And it was like, hey, you look like you could do marketing. Cool. But it was great. I inherited eager people. But what I did first was there's a couple things. One was the company, if you asked 10 people, you would get 10 answers of who our target audience is, who are the sweet spot folks. And the other thing was I realized that we had no value proposition. Like the value proposition was all across the board. If you asked the sales team, if you asked customer success, all that good stuff. But that started with the work of, okay, first we're going to get into the persona's mindset. We're going to find out who they are, how they think, and we're going to align on who our sweet spot is based on anytime private equity invests, they're going to do a diligence, and that diligence doc should lead you to see who you should focus on, and then you can go test there. But that was the first thing was, I inherited a small team, that's okay. But first I knew we had to start with a foundation that we can build on.
Yeah. And I remember when I came in, you already knew an idea for who your personas were. So we had all of that material. We just needed to clarify, maybe crystallize the copy, the messaging on the website, right? I'm curious, in the early stages, what did you do to understand your customers? I know that one great thing that I enjoyed working with you was watching a lot of customer demos, sales calls. That was really good. Did you do anything else? What were the activities that you did to research your customers?
Yeah. One unique thing that ServiceCore did before my time, I wish I could take credit for this because it's genius, but we started hiring our customers to work for us. So we literally hired the personas that we were trying to sell to, and they became part of our implementation team, which build such trust in an industry that does not trust software companies. They trust each other. So we would send people that we still do, we send people that look just like them and talk just like them and think like them, and they know their business inside and out. So I had a gift handed to me, which was, hey, these people work here. You could talk to them anytime you want. So I would go deep on my own research of, listening to demo calls, even talking to customers, doing different things. But I would take these things to them and then bounce stuff off of them. Like, A, did I get this right? And B, if you were in your role before and you saw this, would it make you think about this? Would it make, and what would happen is they would say, oh, you hit it almost perfectly, but use this word. We never say that.
Yeah.
And oh, perfect. Why? And then I'd want to understand how they thought about it. It wasn't just, hey, does this work? Cool, I'm going to go try it. It was, tell me why. I want to know how you think about it. And then I got really deep because they worked with us. And later we started doing this with customers because they were really open to it. But what's your, like, what couldn't you do with your family that you could do once you like got the business running more efficiently? That was really exciting to get into the psychology of how these people thought about their life versus just their business. Because I think that is what really helped us get to a value proposition that resonated. And we made fun of our competitors who have value propositions that are so generic and do business better.
Yeah.
I think that's one of them. And it's just, okay, what the hell does that mean? But we, like your method, you're really listening to the words that they use, the customers that is, or your target persona. And you're trying to weave those, not just like things they say, but the stories that they tell you into how you're going to set up like all your campaigns is based on those things.
Yeah.
So I would say I had an unfair advantage, but if I didn't have that, I would do that 100% I would go buddy up with customers. And I believe, I learned this from, shout out to my friend Kevin from a different company who is one of the best business development people I know. He said to me once, when you're dealing with folks that are more in blue collar industries, you got to show up at their business, and that's when they'll give you their time, and that's when they'll respect you. If you just try to do it over calls and things like that, it's never going to happen. And when I learned that, I brought it for the rest of my parts of working with home service industry. And when you go show up there, they treat you like family, but that's where you can actually get a deep understanding of how they think.
Yeah.
If you just be authentic, again, going back to that. If you're not authentic there, they'll smell it and you won't be on the inside circle.
Yeah.
So that's my approach.
Yeah, I love it. You basically have a copy testing, message testing team inside the in-house.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
curious.
Again, unfair advantage.
Yeah. I never asked, did you actually use them as a soundboard with my copy when I shared it?
I did. Yeah, for sure. Once we got everything laid out for the website project we worked on together, I don't want to put out anything there that's going to use the wrong word and whatnot. We did go back to them and say, hey, let's look through everything together. Did we miss anything? Is anything off? And there were a few things that they were like, oh, that's great, but add this. You forgot this piece of it. And you forgot the piece was always something that was like, I had never heard that before. And if I hadn't asked these people sometimes it's just racking their own brain and they remember something that was difficult in their role. Yeah. That they were like, oh yeah, this is the hot button thing. The other part also that was helpful, just going backwards for a second, is if your customer success team, and we have this advantage of people that work in the industry we hired, and now they're the people talking to customers, but seasonality happens. And at different times a year, they're going to be talking about different types of pain that they're experiencing. And so we touch base with them all the time to listen to the stories that are happening. And then we turn those stories into pitches on our sales team, our outbound team, into marketing campaigns. And so that way they're timely. We're speaking to things that they care about now versus whenever they came up with it.
And speaking of, you mentioned visiting your customers, going inside their business, you also return the favor because I know that you have a portable toilet in your lobby. Is that true?
Yes, this is true.
That shows commitment.
It's never been used. Yeah. We also serve the dumpster. We bought a company that our software does serve the dumpster industry. But if you're primarily a roll-off dumpster operator, we were a solution that was not the best out there. So we went and bought the best one out there. But we always wanted to say, like, how can we get a dumpster in here too? But we can't figure that out.
That would be epic. Yeah. Love it.
Yeah. Open the roof.
Yeah. All right. So you mentioned one of the challenges for this project was also, selling to people who weren't accustomed to software. They were also maybe averse to software. And looking at data, I know that a lot of people, when they are comparing different solutions in B2B, a lot of the times they don't even make a decision. So they go back to the status quo. In your case, the status quo was spreadsheets, papers, right? So how do you think,
Yes.
what would be your advice to companies, SaaS companies, marketing teams who have to deal with trying to persuade these types of people who have the status quo in mind?
Sure. I think for us, and everyone has a different approach, so this is just approach I took, but I like to go deep into idea sessions with our team, and not just the marketing team, but beyond, bringing other people in the different parts of the business. And sometimes outside of the business, I'll bring people inside, customers, or just other, we call it suppliers. So if you sell into this industry, you're a supplier, you could be a manufacturer, things like that. But what I like to do is have an idea session where, instead of on purpose, we'll set a timer, we have a topic. And if at any point people go linear with their idea, I'm usually the referee that comes in and all the most bizarre, random, out there, shocking idea that just totally throws it on its head. And then people are like, oh, wait, we're thinking too linear. Everyone does that. What we're trying to accomplish is what are none of our competition thinking about? What is no one else doing out there? What's the shock factor we can come out with that gets people to go, whoa, what's that? I want to look at that. I want to lean in. Because when you do have people that are really skeptical of software companies, you have to get into a game that's different than anything that other people are approaching them with. And I don't want to say too much because I can't give away our secret sauce here of what our strategy, since this will be published, but at its core, that's the stuff we love to live in and let stew and keep bouncing around. And we've come out with some really interesting things that don't lead with we're a software company. We lead with other things that have been part of our advantage. And it's probably the reason why people say we see you everywhere. Another big thing in this industry, people are not online. They don't have a big online footprint. So that way you can go, we're just going to go scrape all the marketing people in the country and start cold calling them. That's just not in these niche industries, but they really like Facebook groups. And the Facebook groups can actually tell you a lot about the tenor of the industry, about what people are feeling at different times. And so we really tap into that part of it to try to also understand how are people feeling at any given point in time.
Yeah. You mentioned linear ideas. I'm super curious. How do you define a linear idea?
Sure. And I'll just generalize here and I'll use probably a bad example, but any marketing team out there in the world, right? Okay, we have a new product feature that we're going to put out. We're going to send email blasts and we're going to tell our customers about it. And we're going to give the sales team a pitch deck and we're going to make sure we update our website. Like, to me, that's like super linear thinking. And another way to approach it could be, okay, that's linear. What if we got one of our customers to do a commercial for us? And it was like a spoof commercial that was pick something out there in the world that's popular and we're going to imitate that because it can relate and it's going to get people to go, what the hell is that? An example of that I can't share, won't give away any secrets, because probably our competition thought we were crazy when we did this, but there was a viral video that was from a Morgan Wallen concert, popular country western singer, that it was this mom and a daughter who got into a fight in front of porta potties. And there was like this ton of porta potties were in the background, and who knows what happened, but literally fists were flying and people were falling in and out of porta potties and whatnot. And in our industry, that started making the rounds on the socials. And so everyone's sharing that video. Look, when there's the manufacturer was like, those are our toilets, that kind of stuff. Me being the crazy person that I am as a marketer, I said, what if we made a spoof video of that? So we have a video that's out there it says before ServiceCore and it's the lady getting beaten up. And in the video, there's a woman that comes in who saves the day. And we had one of our largest men that work for ServiceCore dress up as her. He came in and it says, ServiceCore's got your back. It had, last time I checked, 264,000 views on TikTok. Oh my God. So just that's an idea of thinking in a nonlinear way. We're going to put ourselves out there. People might not like it. It might fall flat, but we're going to do things that get people to go, whoa, or just laugh. Even if they just laugh, if they laugh, you have them, then they're going to lean into you.
Yeah. It reminds me, I spoke a couple of weeks ago with someone else for the podcast. He is a senior growth at Podia, which is a platform for courses, website creation, email. And they were doing a similar thing in a sense that they partnered with a YouTube influencer. And they have this
Mm.
whole thing, this theme of the creative juice, so for creators. So what they basically did was having this influencer was, I remember if it was a chef or someone who like was preparing meals, juices, and they had her create this like purple as their own brand, creative juice on YouTube, and that went like basically viral. So yeah,
Nice.
it speaks to the fact that sometimes, especially now with the competition getting fiercer and fiercer, you have to cut through the noise. And if you can do it in an industry like yours where no one is really doing it, you can really stand out.
Yeah. And by the way, even if they were, I don't think people would take it as far as some of the things that we've done because
Mm,
they're usually, I think your typical response is linear thinking. It's a scare, unless you're the owner, you don't usually have carte blanche to do whatever you want. You have to run it by someone. And what I've found in my career is sometimes when you run it up the ladder, I don't think we
mm,
should do that because they are thinking in a linear way and it's really hard to push people that think that way.
yeah.
I think this is something that has grown inside myself over the last few years where I'm seeing the benefits of doing this. And that's when you think about who's your best social media influencer out there that you follow. Everyone's got their thing.
Mm,
It's because they have this it factor that is not the traditional, there's something captivating that keeps you coming back to
yeah.
it. And usually it's because it's not in a linear fashion,
Yeah.
right? It's something that's so interesting that I have to keep looking at it.
Yeah. It's polarizing. One
Hmm.
of the influencers that I watch is a guy that spent 10 years in prison and now is a personal trainer. So yeah, I can attest to that. And another important factor that I always try to keep in mind when it comes to positioning, messaging, is the point of view of a company that also helps create this polarizing factor. What do you think is ServiceCore's point of view, if you have one?
Sure. I think it goes back to the core values of our company. And this is where it can get like cheesy really quick
Mm,
with corporate life, where it's here's our core values, we put them on a wall
yeah.
and they're usually BS. But this is in my career, I've only had a few times, and I always tell people this on our team. There's only been a few times in my career where you feel this magic happening and the people you work with, you're all like in sync. There is no friction. Everything's working really well. And those times don't last.
Mm,
And I know that, and it's the sad part about it, but I know it doesn't last as you grow and grow and things change, they get different. But the ethos of our company is one of our core values is keep it fun. And so it's a lot easier for me to go float stuff past the CEO, who's my boss. That is, I've floated some absolutely crazy ideas by him that involved enormous monetary things. And like, I remember one time I thought he was going to fire me and he was thinking for a long time. And then he said, that's effing genius. But I don't think if our ethos was, our core values are basically like, give a shit, pun intended,
mm,
deliver results, love our customers, and keep it fun.
yeah.
And and be real. And I think like the combination of those, they're so easy, but we really live like you could show up however you want. As long as you're bringing to the table your authentic self and you're having fun while you're doing it, I think that is the magic that makes it so much easier to live in that
Mm.
kind of, we're not going to be linear world.
Yeah, that's really good. I was just looking at your website, so shifting a bit into messaging. I noticed that you've added a couple of pages that are more targeted towards the keyword software now. And I was wondering, how do you think about, okay, you have the layer where people are more accustomed to the status quo, and then you're still trying to hit those that look for software. Is that something that you added recently, or is that part of the strategy from the get-go? How do you think about these two different layers?
Yeah. It's a great question. When I developed the value proposition of the company, I on purpose did not say software. I
Mm,
called it a tool because you think about people that are blue collar using tools, they're not using software and they
yeah.
don't like software. But not recently, it's been over the last year, we want to dominate in the SEO game. And so your website you have to look at your metrics as a marketer. That's the not so sexy part of
Mm,
marketing, but it is one of the most valuable and important parts is where are you having success? How do you double down on some of that success? And in a very niche market, SEO is sometimes harder to come by because not a lot of search volumes out there. And so our strategy is we want to capture all the search volume out there for people that are looking for this. But once we have enough content, once we get them, that we feel confident that we can push them stuff that feels more authentic, that doesn't say software, that
mm,
goes more into the tool realm. But how do people discover you that are coming to Vend to buy software each year? How do you get them to think about you first? A lot of that happens on Google. And so we made sure that we're trying to capture all of that. And that's been part of our strategy.
Yeah. And you mentioned in another conversation we had, you mentioned that you've been using AI as well for some of that. How can you go into a bit like a high level of some of your systems for using it and how you use it?
Sure. We don't do anything too fancy that others aren't doing, but like ChatGPT has been godsend to our company, mainly because when you do have, our team is a decent size for the company the company size that we're at. We are trying to pump out tons and tons of content at a rapid pace. And so we use ChatGPT to help us cut through the noise of what are people talking about in certain forums, what's the tenor out there, and it helps you do that very quickly. And I think most people out there just scratch the surface on ChatGPT, and we are very lucky to have some people on our staff who go really deep with it and do some things with it that are just like mind-boggling of how cool it is and how efficient it makes you. And so we've leveraged ChatGPT as our main AI thing. We've toyed around with some other ones that didn't really give us the results that we were looking for, but that's been our main bread and butter.
Yeah. I'm super curious. You mentioned that you have former operators working with you. Do you ever try, did they ever try to go in ChatGPT and maybe enter, I don't know, some of the keywords or kind of frame ChatGPT? Because if you give it a role and some specific examples, it performs better. So I was curious, do they go in the tool and try to frame it in a better way?
They did not, but without giving away too much, I've definitely played with that with the knowledge that I've gained from them and then going to make basically, here's who you are going to be conversation.
Yeah.
And so like training it that way has been really interesting to see what it comes up with, and it just keeps getting better as they improve it. But yeah, it's been a big help for us.
Yeah, what I found is super helpful to create these kind of archetypes of your personas. But at the same time, I found it quite hard still to keep the voice and tone consistent. So I think on that front, it still needs to get better. And it's not as easy as creating a custom GPT and telling it, okay, now you are this one, this is how you're going to write. It's still inconsistent. So hopefully it will get a bit better probably in the coming months.
Yeah, you have to use your brain.
Yeah.
And you have to use the knowledge that you have to check it. So for us, it's all about helping us get the speed, but we don't just go, hey, do this for us. And then we go with that. It helps us get the 60% there. We're finishing the 40%. And if it got a 75, even better, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So a recent change that you made, you acquired a SaaS company that does dumpster rental software business. And you mentioned that you had to tweak your messaging. So how did you go about doing it?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier, our current software platform with ServiceCore, it did serve the roll-off dumpster market, and people there, we have happy customers that still use it. A lot of those customers they have dumpsters and portable toilets and whatnot, so it just makes a lot more sense. But what we realized is that, hey, there's a up-and-coming dumpster company out there that has gaining a good reputation. So we went and looked and purchased it, and this is where maybe it's even the linear thinking part, but a lot of marketers try to put this one size fits many playbook. And it would have been very easy to say, hey, if our messaging was working and it was attracting some dumpster folks, why wouldn't we just run the same playbook over there? And what we found was there are, like, as we talk to customers and as we keep running our playbook, hiring people that worked in the industry over there. And so that way they can serve that industry. What I realized is that the personas were actually very similar, but there was a few key differences. Just as one example, they don't call themselves operators like the portable sanitation industry does. They call themselves haulers. And so if you have marketing copy that says operators, they might not even know what that is because it's so specific to the portable sanitation industry. So it was diving into some of those things, but we also found that in the dumpster industry, it has not been as underserved by software. There are a lot more competitors out there. And what we found was that people they are more, willing to speak with a software company versus some of the portable sanitation industry that's not as trusting. They're not as far along in the adoption curve.
Yeah.
And so how I speak to someone that's not far along in the adoption curve is very different than someone that might be further down, where you don't have to be as, I got to educate versus I can educate and then a little bit of pain selling in there too. So those are if we had just run a playbook of, oh, that worked here, where it's going to work over there, we would definitely be missing out and probably people seeing us as I smell that something doesn't smell right for just about a year. And we are rocket ship on that side of the business because we got so deep into the personas over there and made sure that those tweaks had happened.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of these changes, especially, how do you make sure that all teams, sales, marketing, product are aligned and speak the same language?
Yep, that's a really good question. This is where more of the blocking and tackling, not so fun stuff comes in. But for me personally, I've experienced the bad side of when departments don't talk to each other and there's not a lot of fluidity across where people are saying different things. That's what I experienced when I first came to the company, and to no fault of their own, it was just the size they were at. It's like, you see it a lot, but it has to start from, in my opinion, it starts from the tippity top. If you're CEO or founder or whoever, like if they're pontificating to the organization, hey, this is who we go after. This is our value prop. Like, it's not this shiny object over here. It's this. And they keep over and over. You're always talking about those things. And I also think we do something unique where maybe others do this, but we bring our customers to a lot of our internal meetings and whatnot to talk to them and make sure that our team is hearing the voice of what they're saying. And then we reinforce it with, that's why we say these things. That's why our demos are done this way. That's why our marketing looks this way. That's why customer success talks this way. And again, having the advantage of people that worked in those personas in our industry, in our company, really helped keep us aligned there. But you have to be highly intentional to do this. And usually the marketing leader is always you have to be kind of the face of the company, the clown of the company, always smiling and making people happy. But if you can do a good job of getting your CEO on board to make sure that it's top down, I think that's where the alignment happens versus it's really hard to just like, hey, sales team, please say this thing. And it has to be, everyone's bought into it.
Yeah. Love it. All right. So last couple of questions. One thing that I want to ask. So when it comes to what I call message market fit, I define it as having the right positioning for the right audience, using the right language for the right awareness level. In your case, also sophistication matters quite a lot. So I was wondering, do you think you as ServiceCore have message market fit now or not? And why or why not?
I think we're on the way to have it. And the reason I say that is going back to my ServiceTitan example. You can't just come out overnight and go, hey, folks that are really early in the adoption curve that don't trust software, like we're going to just come out with some message marketing fit just because we understand how you think and stuff. And then boom, you're going to be perfectly on board. It's, can I get you on board with where you're at today? And can I slowly take you to a place that you're going to grow and learn, and we're going to get to a place where there's message market fit. But that does not happen overnight. It's like working out, right? You got to start somewhere and start lifting the lighter weights before you get to the heavier weights. You may need to do a prison stint as far as your social media influencer goes, but in all seriousness, you have to meet them where they're at. And that message market fit, in my opinion, is dynamic depending on how far along your personas are on the adoption curve.
Yeah, you could probably say there are message market fits at different levels, different stages. When you reach one, then you get ready to reach the next one until until you reach maturity, I think, probably.
Yep. And I would say you might want to have a few different message market fits in your back pocket, if that makes sense, because your customers are more than likely going to be diverse. Some are more further along than others. And if you try to speak to them in the way that you're trying to speak to the majority that are not in the same, they're trying to get there, it's going to fall flat. And so I think having multiple styles of even if they're the same persona, it's the owner or it's the COO, whoever, you may have to pull out something different to talk to them, because what they care about and live every day is very different than someone that's just starting out. And they have very different cares and needs and hairs on fire.
Yeah, totally. All right. What's your biggest challenge right now? And if you were to advise someone how to solve it, what would you tell them?
Interesting. Biggest challenge right now, I think, is and maybe it's just personally, like I'm more of I have to check myself because I am impatient and I see something, I get really excited about it.
Mm.
And so the advice I would give to someone else is the same as I try to tell myself. It's going back to that, meet people where they're at today, but also meet what you're doing. Hey, there's a process here and there's a way to get there. You can't just jump to the finish line, and I can't start working out and be Arnold the next day. I know what it takes, but you have to go through that motion to get there. And that's it's more of a personal one, but that's my biggest challenge right now.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. My last question is, I know that you are pretty big into working out, gym, running, and I was wondering, what's your biggest recent lesson from working out?
Oh man, I don't know if I have any. So me personally, I love fitness. I'm a very regimented person, and I've been working out pretty consistently. Like when I say consistently, I'm a person that does something every single day
Yeah.
to my wife's dismay sometimes. But I think that and there are plenty of other influencers that are in this world that I follow that say these things. So I'm stealing and paraphrasing, but consistently being good versus the occasionally great. I would rather just show up and be consistent. And that's both in my work life as well as my gym life and whatnot. That consistency builds not just muscle, but it builds resilience. It helps you not get injured. And I think those are the things, like when you try to swing for the fences at your job or in marketing in particular, that's when you miss okay, you're not meeting people where they're at today and you have to get to this place.
Yeah.
But I also think for me personally, the most fun part about working out is seeing, like when I would run a marathon, it's the training block before a marathon. You suck at your 15 milers in the beginning, but then by the end, you're like, I ran more half marathons during my training than most people did in the last 10 years of their life or ever. But it's like, same thing. If you're working on those things consistently building up, it's so neat to look back and see, oh, wow, like I got to a place that I didn't think I was going to get to.
Yeah.
And it became easy.
Yeah.
And that's the really cool part for me.
Yeah, learning to love the process, learning to love the grind. That's really good. Good advice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. So people can find you, Matt Aiello, love the Italian last name. Can find you on LinkedIn, right? And ServiceCore.com.
Yep.
Where else? Any other places you would like to point people to?
That's my main places right now. LinkedIn's the best place, and would love to meet new people and network.
Awesome. All right, Matt. Thank you so much again. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Chris. I've enjoyed being on.
Cheers. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the pod. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, the best thing you could do to support the show and help me as a small business owner would be to leave a review. Head over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and let me know what you think. If you don't want to miss future episodes, subscribe, and if you have any feedback, questions, or suggestions for future episodes, just hit me up on LinkedIn at Christopher Silvestri or Twitter at SilvestriChris. Speak to you next time.